about Christ and Buddha. The image of the ego as a vessel leads to the important idea of being a carrier of consciousness, i.e., an incarnation of transpersonal meaning. Okay? Two main archetypal figures have represented this idea in world culture, namely Buddha and Christ. We are fortunate to have two such figures. With two comes the possibility of comparison and objectivity. As long as there is but one figure embodying supreme value, he can only be worshipped but not understood. With the presence of two, we can discover this separate third thing which they both share. Understanding and greater consciousness then become possible. What Christ and Buddha have in common is the idea of being a carrier of consciousness. Characteristically, the image emerging in the West represents the standpoint of the ego, and that deriving from the East speaks from the standpoint of the self. Together they reveal a pair of opposites. The crucified Christ and the meditating Buddha represent consciousness as agony and consciousness as tranquil bliss. Total acceptance of the bondage to matter on the one hand and total transcendence of the world on the other. United, they picture the two sides of the carrier of consciousness, which, that kind of does it for me, because I've been going to these Buddhist meditation groups. My wife has been doing it for 20 years, and I say, what? To what end? Where, okay, we can meditate about the self, about mind, and we can say, oh, mani padme hum, everything is one, that's all well and good. But to what end? And so he sort of summed it up here, which is, it's the opposite of a Western way of thinking. Right, and it's both. It's both things, and that's what Edinger is getting at. Just read a little bit more. Okay, so God is now to be carried experientially by the individual. This is what is meant by the continuing incarnation. Okay, so he says on page 90 of this book, if the individual stands over against the primitive Yahweh effects within him, if he allows them to live without repressing them, which is depression, and without identifying with them, which is inflation, if he struggles to extract the images of meaning that lie embedded in them, if he patiently and diligently seeks the way of individuation, which the conscious both reveals and withholds, then his efforts will have a gradual transformative effect on Yahweh. He will be offering himself as a crucible for the transformation of the dark God and contributing his widow's mite to the cosmic drama of continuing creation. I really like that. That's sort of sums it up, doesn't it?
But he didn't mention the Virgin Mary in there. Jung mentioned that it took the Virgin Mary image of Sophia to not balance, but moderate Yahweh.
Yeah. Okay. Yahweh was moderated in the lap of the Virgin, right?
Right, which came later.
Yeah, that's what.
It's historical.
Okay, that's right. That's what he said.
Does he talk about that here?
Not right here, but I read that within the last 4 hours. Okay. So here's a quote from Jung, from C.G. Jung speaking, which is, we all must do just what Christ did. We must make our experiment.
Do you think Donald Trump's making God decisions?
He is making God decisions. He's making Yahweh type God decisions. Okay, and here's why I say that.
Yeah, I think we're conflating something here. Because I don't think he's making decisions that are, I think he's making decisions that have been informed by a lot of nature, and it's not a nurture decision, it's not a decision based on coming forth of a genuine self.
Right.
It's a it's the coming forth
it's
of
infantile.
what he's adopted and adapted to, and
It's
what he's
Yahweh.
inherited.
It's Yahweh. It's infantile. Okay. I mean, the other example, which we've had in the movies this year,
The rich boy dispensation.
right, is
Holds all the cards and has all the power.
right.
And he's
Florence,
Trump, so what are you going to do?
yeah, Florence Foster Jenkins, right? Everybody goes along with her, doesn't tell her she can't sing for crap, right? And so she never individuates. Okay, she just goes based on, you know, whatever she wants to do, whatever she thinks is right. Okay, which is what would happen if nobody ever corrects you. Then, you know, it's okay when you're 2 years old still to be crying if you wet your pants, right? But if you're 2.5 and you're still crying when you wet your pants, maybe your mom better go whip up on you a little bit, okay? And no, really, and Edinger's point is that we only individuate through pain, through this Job cycle, okay? And he says it goes over and over and over again through life. I mean, we're all going through it right now in one way or another, right? And so it's a defeat. I mean, it's a contest, a defeat, a lamentation about the defeat, and then a rebirth into something new, okay? And that makes us the unique individual we become. As Edinger says, we're stepping out of this field of just the collective archetype, and we're becoming uniquely ourselves. And, you know, we can talk about the president, but my cut on it is he hasn't been corrected very much in his lifetime, very much like Florence Foster Jenkins. And so he's gotten away with a hell of a lot. And so now, all of a sudden, he's getting corrections left and right. The judges aren't letting him do this stuff, right? Some things are not being allowed. He's not getting away with it on television anymore. And so all of a sudden, he's getting the corrections that he never got before, okay, in his life. So he didn't become fully individuated. Now, the question is he actually mentally ill, or is he just individuated, immature, infantile? And therefore, if he gets corrected a few times, is he smart enough to then correct his own behavior so that he can actually have a good presidency? Okay, we'll know the answer.
The word's not smart enough, humble enough might be the word.
Well, and it takes humility. It does take humility. And Edinger talks about that at one point here, where even soldiers coming back from the war, if they're victorious, you have to hold them aside. You have to put them in garrison for a week or two to have them settle down, to get humble again. And it's like, remember in the movie Patton's talking about how the Caesars, when they came into Rome from a victorious campaign, would have a slave in the chariot with them, whispering, "Remember, all fame is fleeting." Right?
Yeah, Robert Johnson talked about that in one of those little thin books he wrote. He said he had he was just inflated. He had some big production. Maybe he released a book and it was selling like, you know. And he said he was just so excited. He went to a restaurant and he treated the waiter like shit, you know. And he went, "Oh my God, I forgot to balance myself." So every time he does something that's really, you know, that gets him real inflated, he has to do something consciously to deflate himself, you know.
Yeah.
Sackcloth and ashes.
Right. And so you have to keep that balance. And this is what Jung was talking about you know, you can't be the shaman, right? That's an inflation too, right? You have to learn how to balance it within yourself